Hello, it's Dan Beck here, and it is a Halloween night, and couldn't let this month go by without talking a little bit about one of the Bible mysteries in Revelation, the 666, or the Mark of the Beast. Now, uh, I have a pretty interesting observation regarding that, and so stick with me. This might be part one of a two-part presentation, but I'll make them both as short as I can. In Revelation, where it talks about the mark of the beast, it talks about the number of his name, and his number is 666. And if you read in the Bible, there are a few places where that number kind of pops up. In the year 600 BC, which is a measurement of time, there's a measurement of 60 degrees, 60 cubits by 6. What it is it's the image that Nebuchadnezzar erected and demanded that everybody in his country or whatever bow down and worship this image, which was probably of him, but he wanted to be worshipped, or he wanted this image worshipped, and this was all kind of a his magicians and stuff, kind of his priests, magicians, kind of put this all together, and they were out to try to mess with Daniel, anyways, because Daniel already had a name for himself with the king at that time, I believe. So here we go. The measurement is 666 is in the year on 600 BC, and the measurement of the gold, the image that Nebuchadnezzar had erected. The other place it shows up as the amount of weight that Solomon received in a year in gold, and that weight was 666 talents. And the third place that I noticed where it was mentioned, of course, is in Revelation itself, where it's mentioned as a number. Now, this is just a kind of an interesting observation. This hit me because I'm looking about what is wisdom. God, I pray to God, for wisdom, and I wanted to have the wisdom, of Solomon, but I wanted to be wiser than Solomon, not make the same mistakes that he made. Well, that I haven't lived it out my life yet, so I've probably but I probably have made several mistakes. At any rate, in the Book of Wisdom itself, this is a book that was around at the time that John and Patmos wrote the Book of Revelation. He would have been aware of this book, and whether or not he read it, I think you'll have to decide for yourself. But if you get your hands on one, it's one of the Apocrapha books. It's in the Catholic Bible. And so it's kind of a bummer to a lot of Protestants who kind of discard all those books as basically irrelevant. But this one passage in the book kind of adds validity to at least this one book of wisdom. And here it is in passage chapter 11. It talks about, in about the 18th verse, it talks about how God is dealing with the Egyptians, and he's saying that he's going to kind of deal with them because they went off and worshipped dumb serpents and worthless insects, and there's a mention that Jesus says also that which one of you, as a father whose son would ask for bread would give him a stone, or would ask him for an egg would give him a scorpion, or would ask him for a fish would give him a serpent. And he says, if you being evil know how to give good gifts, how much more will your Father in heaven know how to grant you the Holy Spirit to those that would ask him. So he's making an observation, which one of you would do this, and it's quite clear that the staff of the Egyptians, one of them is crooked, like it comes back around like a serpent's tail. It's a cane shape, but it's the other one is a straight rod, and the Egyptians, they all held that crook and frail as a symbol and of a symbol of godliness, And so, but I think they also represent the serpent and the snake. And the stone, of course, would probably be the pyramid, because the pyramids in Egypt were not unlike the pyramids in Mexico. And at the base of that pyramid in Mexico, you have the serpent heads on that, which kind of says that the pyramids itself represent, this huge serpent. And I think that whatever powers that were incorporated in these things, the Egyptians were aware of them, at least then, and perhaps there was some kind of magic that they performed with that. At any rate, they worshipped these things, and because of some perceived power that it gave them. And then he says, verse 17 of chapter 20, of chapter 11, in the book of wisdom, for not without means was your almighty hand, and he's talking to God, that fashioned the universe from formless matter. You sent upon them a drove of beasts and fierce lions, new created, wrathful, unknown beast, to breathe forth fiery breath and pour out roaring smoke, or flash terrible sparks from their eyes. And I think that this is kind of related to, this huge fiery serpent. And it's interesting also that the word pyro is, and the word pyramid is for fire, and I believe it's like fire within, fire mountain, something to that effect. But he goes on to say, verse 19, not only could those attack and completely destroy them, even their frightful appearance itself could slay. And so, even without these, they could have been killed by a single blast, pursued by retribution, and winnowed out of your mighty spirit. But you, I beg your pardon, I'm losing my audience, but you have disposed all things by, listen, measure, number, and weight. God has disposed all things by measure, number, and weight. Isn't that fascinating? This book was written, several, at least 1,000 years ago, but probably closer to 2,000, and or more. And he mentions that God has disposed all things by measure, number, and weight. When I first read that, I thought how brilliant that these ancient writings are actually sound a little bit like Einstein. Einstein was the one who the father of the atom. He kind of helped to establish that the atom had atomic weight, atomic number, and that the energy that it could produce was relative to the speed of light squared, and the speed of light is measurement. So you have a measure, you have a number, atomic number, you have an atomic weight. And how brilliant is that? And one of the first things that Einstein saying in this E equals mc squared is that all matter can be reduced to energy, and energy was what? It's light. And so it's interesting also that Satan was this angel of light, and that not only that, but light is like the plasma it's the energy force, which says it's the light's plasma that is part of the Big Bang. All of these things, when you burn different objects, when you overheat, you'll heat up different objects. You heat up iron, you heat up, you burn oxygen or iron, or various elements. They all have what's called a spectrometer or spectrum. They all show up on different wavelengths of light, when they're burned. And these little different wavelengths then can be looked at and detected where they fall, whether the substance is iron being burned or helium or hydrogen or anything. And so they use that in astronomy, And so they put that light through a prism and they look at the light distributed, and they can tell what that star is consuming and what's burning, even though it's all these light years away. At any rate, God truly has disposed of all things by measure, number, and weight. The fact that Einstein was able to reduce things down to measurement or number and weight for the atom, I thought was quite fascinating. But then when I looked at the 666, I see that all things are by measure, number, and weight, and that the 666 is, interestingly enough, is mentioned those 3 times. But it shows up in a couple more places. But one particular spot is related to David, who slew Goliath. Now, Goliath, he had the 600 shekel in weight of a shield and sword, and he had 6 different objects that were part of his overall armor. So he had the shield, and he had the armor, and he had 6 fingers and 6 toes on each of his limbs, and you see the 666 coming up with him as well. But what did he represent? He represented the fear of the Israelis people in this war that they were fighting. And David, who came along, was the one who of course slayed him with those 5 stones. But the point is, there were fears involved, just like it's mentioned, that fears involved with God handling the Egyptians. That the fear part of it plays into all this. And so the 666, and whether that pertains to some leader out in the future, some mark being put on people's heads, and all these things. But I look at it this way, God's not going to say, don't have anything to do with the materialistic world, because what you need is part of the materialistic world to survive. So he doesn't want us to go to that extreme. But he puts this 666 in there, this mystery of 666, to say, don't worship these things that the God of love has created, because you're missing something. You're letting a thing which doesn't think, can't love back, which is an inanimate object, or even an object of power, but it's not a spiritual soul being like you are. You're much more important, more valuable. Each one of us are so much more valuable than those things sometimes that we value over each other. And I think that at the end of the day, when we prioritize things above each other as individuals, when we do that, we're really shortchanging ourselves, because if we undervalue others, we intrinsically are undervaluing ourselves. So that's part 1 of the mark of the beast, the 666. It's about priorities. Don't let your priorities be materialistic, where you value a number more than the love of God, because that's all we're talking about. This 666 it's a number, a mark on the wall, adding up to a certain specific number. But anyway, happy Halloween. Have a good night.